So, you're thinking about buying an electric vehicle, right? Whether it's brand new or a few years old, there's always that one huge question that hangs over the whole decision. It's the thing everyone's debating online, and it's exactly what we're going to break down today.
I mean, this is the real multi-thousand-dollar question, isn't it? Is that car still going to be a reliable ride in 5, 8, or even 10 years? Or are you basically just buying a ticking clock that ends with a massive, massive repair bill?
Well, the honest answer is, it could be either one. Seriously. On one hand, you've got owners who are, almost a decade in, and they're seeing a totally acceptable minor drop in range. But on the other hand, you've got the absolute nightmare scenario, a battery that just dies, and a quote to fix it that might be worth more than the car itself. This huge gap between the good and the bad, that's what we need to get to the bottom of. To really understand what's going on, we have to start with the people who've actually lived it. The first wave of EV drivers. They're about a decade into this whole experiment, and believe me, their stories paint a really fascinating and sometimes, kind of frightening picture. Okay, so this right here, this is the kind of experience everybody was hoping for. This owner lost just over 10% of their range after about 8 years. Yeah, it's a drop you'd notice, for sure, but the car is still completely useful for daily driving, even for road trips. This is a super common story, and honestly, it's a pretty great outcome.
And then, you have the other side of the coin, total, sudden battery failure. We're not talking about a slow, gradual loss of a few miles here and there. We're talking about a battery that just gives up. And if that happens after the warranty is up, man, owners are left with an unbelievably tough financial choice. So when you look at all these stories, you see this huge spectrum. A lot of the early adopters are seeing that expected 1% per year drop, and they're totally happy. But there's a real number of people, especially with those older models, who are getting hit with sudden failures and replacement costs that are just staggering. Think $16,000 to $20,000. And as one person pointed out, even if you get a warranty replacement, that new battery might not come with its own new warranty. It just creates a cycle of risk.
Okay, so let's get into the why. Why does this happen? The difference between a happy owner and someone facing a 5-figure repair bill, it all comes down to the pretty complex science of how a battery gets old.
So at its most basic, battery aging is this permanent, irreversible loss of capacity. It's not like your gas tank is shrinking, it's the actual chemistry inside that's getting less and less effective. And the really important part is that it's non-linear, which is just a fancy way of saying how you treat the battery has a huge, huge impact on how fast it gets old.
This degradation really happens in two main ways. First up, you've got calendar aging. Just like us, batteries get older over time, no matter what you do. Time is the enemy there. Then you've got cycling. That's the wear and tear from actually using the battery, charging it up and draining it down. For that one, use is the enemy.
Now, what makes all this happen faster? Well, the research points to 3 main culprits. Number 1, high temperatures. That means the climate you live in, but also the heat that's generated when you're charging. Number 2, fast charging. Using those powerful DC fast chargers all the time. And number 3, keeping your battery at the extremes. Letting it sit fully charged at 100% or nearly empty for a long time really stresses out the cells.
So you see what's happening here? There's this fundamental trade-off built right into owning an EV. The convenience we all crave, that idea of pulling over and zapping your car to 80% in 20 minutes, is one of the very things that can wear down the single most expensive part of the car.
Okay, so how does all this science and chemistry actually play out in the real world, with real money? Well, all this uncertainty, all these scary stories, it has a massive consequence. It is absolutely crippling the used EV market. When you actually survey potential buyers, their fears are crystal clear. I mean, look at this. The biggest worries all come back to the battery. The huge financial risk of an unknown problem, the sheer terror of sky-high repair costs, and the fear that the car will lose its value way faster than a gas car. Without knowing the battery's true health, buying a used EV just feels like a huge gamble.
And that's such a massive missed opportunity because the interest is definitely there. This data shows that over 61% of people looking for a car are actually open to buying a used EV. That is a huge market of customers who are ready to buy, but they're being held back by this one big fear.
It really all boils down to this one phrase: battery uncertainty. That fear of accidentally buying a car with a hidden $16,000 problem is the single biggest thing stopping the used EV market from taking off. Buyers have no idea if they're getting a car with a battery at 95% of its life or one that's about to fall off a cliff. That doubt, it kills deals and it tanks the value of these cars.
So if the problem is uncertainty, then the only real solution has to be transparency, right? And that is exactly where this idea of independent battery certification comes into play. Just imagine getting a report, kind of like a Carfax, but specifically for the battery. A simple, easy-to-read certificate from a trusted, independent company that just tells you the facts. The exact state of health, or SOH, which is basically just its remaining capacity. It completely replaces fear with facts.
And look at the impact. It's not just a nice idea, it's a total game changer. Remember that 61% of buyers who are open to used? Well, once you offer them a battery certificate, that number just skyrockets. The potential market suddenly jumps to over 83%. Why? Because you convince a huge chunk of those new car-only people, the ones who are just too afraid of the risk, to consider a used EV.
And hey, this isn't just theory. Look at this real-world data from a major car auction. As soon as they started offering battery certificates, the impact was immediate. Certified cars started getting almost 30% more bids.
And you know what more bids means, right? Faster sales. The data shows that cars with that battery report sold 36% faster. They just don't sit around on the lot, because for the first time, buyers can actually make a decision with confidence. And that confidence, it translates directly into cash. On average, buyers were willing to pay up to 1,100 euros more for a car that came with that certificate. Suddenly, the report pays for itself many, many times over for the seller.
But at the end of the day, it's about more than just the numbers. It's about rebuilding trust in the entire market. An overwhelming 81% of buyers said they see a dealer who offers this kind of report as being way more trustworthy. It just fundamentally changes the entire conversation.
So, what does all of this mean for you? Whether you already own an EV or you're just kicking the tires on one, what's the big takeaway here?
Look, the science and the market data all point to one very clear conclusion: your habits really, really matter. Avoiding constant fast charging, trying to keep that battery in the sweet spot between 20 and 80%, protecting it from crazy summer heat, these things can have a real, measurable impact on how long your battery lasts and how much it's worth. So the real question isn't just if your battery will last, it's what are you going to do starting today to make sure that it does.